Everybody, welcome to Divorcing Today with John and Jennifer. Now what? We have a wonderful guest today, Greg Staley. He's the author of a book called Divorce. It's black and white. He's going to tell us a little bit about that. But he's also going to tell us his story, and hopefully he will provide some more insight. I know he will provide some more insight to our viewers. And we can all learn something. So welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good, I find, in the whole divorce process to have different people trying to educate people that are about to go through the process. Surely there's things that your company does that people, I really believe, should engage in before going through the full process that I went through, which was the nastier side, which is court. And, I spent over $70,000 to get out of my marriage, which is ridiculous. And there's been a new divorce act written the first time in 20 years, as you guys obviously know. And one of the main things in that is a family dispute resolution process, which really encourages even lawyers to send people to mediators, is basically what it is. They want people to try and figure out their situation outside of the courts. If you can't get along, or if there's hostility or danger, clearly the court route is the way you have to go. And in my case, I really had no choice. I had to go the court route. My divorce deteriorated rapidly. We were still living in the same house, but apart, so different floors. And it got volatile fast and actually ended up in charges to my spouse. So, and a no contact order. So as bad as you can imagine a divorce going, I had one of those. So after I was finished, and you're never really finished, just to be clear on that. I mean, it's been 5 years now and I'm still kind of dealing with some remnant stuff, but the main thing that, people don't know is how frustrating and exhausting it'll be. So a lot of people started to come to me and say, well, I'm going through this. Can you give me some advice? And I started taking on all the same types of questions. So I decided to write a book. So I wrote a book, Divorce, It's Black and White, which basically explains the full process and all the terminology that you'll need to understand going through things like what's a financial statement, or what is parenting time or decision-making responsibility. These are things people have no idea about. They don't comprehend them, and quite often they get their definitions mixed up and backwards. So one of the most important things I do also encourage people to do is try and figure it out. Make sure it's over, like really make sure it's over. Go for couples therapy, go for family therapy and co-parenting therapy. Try and get therapy involved early to keep the temperatures down. And that's one of the most important things, because otherwise people are going to spend $70,000 like I did. I mean, why lose all your equity just because you can't really talk with somebody? There's other ways to figure out how to talk with that person, and it's through mediation and it's through co-parenting and things like that.
So it sounds like you've created or brought together a good resource for people who are looking to either are thinking of separating and divorcing, or have been through it, or some tips and tricks, which is amazing. So I'm going to assume that you're based on what you said, that you guys were living in this, or the two of you were living in the same house, upper floor, main floor, or however the dynamic was. So it wasn't amicable.
No.
But how would you, what process? So you went through the court process with lawyers. How would you, can you describe that a little bit for us?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I'm a big believer in, if it's over, you should really try and figure out how to get to a different place, like live apart, not in the same place, because it can go volatile very, very quickly, and it creates team mommy and team daddy with the children as well, which is not good. So the court process, the first thing I did once I knew it was really, truly over, is I went and got a lawyer, which is the first thing I recommend in everything I do. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not court approved or recognized in any manner. I'm just a guy that went through a really nasty divorce. So I'm coming across as more of a coach, but anything, this is my disclaimer, anything that I say is really just my opinion. So it's not a substitute for proper legal advice. So that's really important to say, because a lot of people can go, well, he said I should go do this. No, you always got to go to a lawyer who will handle your specific situation. So what I did is I basically went to a lawyer, and I got a big time Toronto lawyer. And one of the things that happened was we created what we call the separation agreement. And then that was presented to my spouse at the time. And initially it was okay, but then once it sunk in after a couple of days, then the anger started and the game started, and it takes two to tango. So this is my version of the story. She's got her own version of the story. Everybody goes through hardship when you go through separation and divorce. That's why, again, I always say you try and get therapy if you can, because keep the temperature down, because it can go from 0 to 100 really fast. The court route is scary because if you've never been to court, I'd never even been to a court. Like, I had no idea what to expect. So one of the first things we had was a case conference, and I was like really scared because I'm like, I don't even know, like, she's going to start yelling at me and the judge is going to say, yeah, I agree with her. Case conference is not like that. You sit beside your lawyer, they sit beside their lawyer, and you don't get to talk. The judges and the lawyers talk, or the judge and the lawyers talk only. And really, they don't even ask you a question. They just address each other, and then you go out and it's basically a negotiation is what a case conference is. So, but the point is, a lot of people just don't understand the process, and the lawyers only give you a little bit at a time. So you never really see the light at the end of the tunnel. You'll never be able to go, oh, this will take me exactly 8 months to get out of. It can go on and on and on and on and on. So I don't know, it's a frustrating process. I would highly recommend mediation or some kind of therapy. Keep your temperatures calm. Don't go the court route if you can afford it, or if you can at all avoid it, because it's a long, and you'll be so full of anxiety and stress. And the other thing I got to say really quick is your lawyer is not a therapist. So if you go in and start crying to your lawyer, oh, the lawyer doesn't care. Some of them will just listen to you, and they're billing you $350, $400, $500 an hour, and you're ringing up your lawyer fees really quickly. So I recommend somebody goes, if they're going through this, be very factual when you go to see your lawyer. Keep it short and concise as possible. Be very well organized when you go in. Save your emotions for therapy.
So on that, and I agree with you, it is very important to organize yourself before you do have your meetings with your lawyer, so you
Sure.
are organized with your questions and what information you really wish to obtain.
Mhm.
That's where I help my clients, where we talk about the emotional issues, and then when they do go to speak to a lawyer, they feel a little bit more confident.
Sure.
My question to you would be, do you feel that if you were able to give your situation a little more time to breathe, and perhaps speaking to somebody before rushing to get counsel, that it would have helped your situation? Or looking back, do you feel that you made the best move possible for you?
I made the best move possible for my children at the end of the day. And like, in my situation, I can honestly say it was over for a year and a half to 2 years before. And I think a lot of people know that it is over. So it's a good question, because I think if people can catch themselves at that point, they're able to go see you, and they're able to get mediation or just therapy to keep the temperature down, so that they can have a nice separation and a nice divorce. In my case, because there was other things involved that created a volatile situation, once danger gets involved, I mean, it takes it to a whole new level. And I was really trapped because I was not going to leave my children in the house. So in my case, it was just hard. And there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going through violent situations. And the most important thing you can do is really create what I call an exit strategy. So figure out where you're going to go if you go. Like, how are you going to get away? Make sure that you do discuss with authority figures, whether it's a teacher, a religious figurehead of some sort, parents even, if there's any actual violence, and I mean a touch, 911 is your answer there. Like, do not tolerate any violence. If the person is violent, you just need to get away as quickly as possible. You need to scoop up your children and get away, whether you go to a women's shelter or some kind of shelter. But make sure you pre-plan your exit so that you're not caught or stuck or sleeping in a car or on the street, because you have to keep your kids safe if you're taking your kids with you as well.
So that's interesting. Good resources and information.
Well, several people definitely have to deal with their own internal emotions before they're able to make logical decisions.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate that when people do have children, they do have to communicate and continue an ongoing relationship for years. So my question to you is, now that you've completed the process, how are you able to co-parent with your children's mother?
I don't, which is a really, really sad. So you're never done with your spouse ever. Like, there's going to be graduations, there's going to be funerals, there's going to be weddings, there's going to be things. If you have children, you're going to bump into your spouse. So I highly recommend to anybody out there, if you can, go through co-parenting. Learn to be able to break down some of the frustration, the anger that you have towards your spouse, just to be able to be in the same room together. I'm thinking that I'm getting closer, like we send the odd text that is not responded to in a harsh way anymore. But yeah, we're not quite there yet. So and it's devastating for my one daughter who has no access to her mom at all. And my other daughter is kind of caught in between. Both are living with me now, which is fantastic, but they're both older now too, right? So they're my youngest one's about to turn 18 and go to university, and my other daughter's 19 and she's going to college. So they've survived, and I say survived because when you go through a nasty divorce, I really want people to understand they're harming their children as much as anybody else. So if you can co-parent, if you can go to therapy and figure it out to calm the temperature down, it doesn't have to be put on your kid's shoulders. And in my case, sadly, I know we created Team Mommy, Team Daddy, and it puts a lot of weight on those children's shoulders. And I'm lucky and blessed that they're going to be well educated and, you know, have a good head on their shoulders moving forward, no drugs or anything bad like that. So my kids came out of it okay, but there's a lot of children that don't, and that gets really scary really fast.
Well, it's good. It's a good tip. It's a good lesson for people that are, you know, thinking about it or in the process right now, right? So have a good or positive co-parenting relationship. We've heard this on other podcasts that we've been doing with Jennifer. Jennifer, any other questions?
I appreciate you sharing your story and giving some advice for people who are going through it in a less amicable way that need to figure out what they're going to do as an exit strategy. I agree with you. It is really important to have that in mind and to make sure that your children and yourself are always safe. So thank you for highlighting that, because I have several people who don't know what to do. So that's a very important topic in its own. We're actually going to be interviewing somebody who deals strictly with domestic violence, and I think that's a great intro to that. But thank you so much for being on the show, and I'm confident that your advice will be helpful for some of our viewers, and I encourage people to read your book and to tune into your podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was really insightful. And thank you so much, Greg, for coming on to explain a little bit about your experience and your advice for our viewers. I think one thing that Greg said, John, that was really interesting is that people that are going through divorce can really affect their children, because one of the questions that I hear very regularly is, how can I unaffect my children as much as possible? And for me, with all of the due diligence and research that I've done, it's not the divorce that will affect your kids. It's how the parents are going to react and to act in front of the children to each other. And it could be as simple as conflict in front of the children, or body language when they're speaking on the phone to the other co-parent, or speaking to a friend or a family member about the other co-parent in front of the children. There's so many things that parents can do unilaterally to help the children get through it in a better way.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head. I think with a lot of the people that we've had on the show so far, I think one of the consistent messages that exist is you need to do something positive for your kids during this process, right? And not have the burden on their shoulders, right? So is it therapy? Is it taking a step back? Is it looking at this situation through a different lens? And that's really important, because, you know, children are never asked to be born or put into certain situations because of their parents. You know, they just happen to be there. So it's, you know, so far the consistent message has been, yes, there's a lot of stuff going on, but, you know, make sure the kids are put first.
Absolutely.
Divorcing Today, John and Jennifer. Now what?